Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the official home of power mining analysis. Monday afternoon, Bitcoin is now trading sub $80,000 US, pulling back substantially over the weekend, and unfortunately the Bitcoin mining stocks have followed suit in a big way. An absolute bloodbath in the Bitcoin mining sector during trading on Monday, with many of the top miners in the space now down double-digit percentages to kick off the week. In addition to that, we've got global economic concerns on the tariff and trade war front. All of that and more in today's podcast, plus some additional news from the Bitcoin miners themselves. Before we get into it though, take a second, smash the like button, you guys. Big help to myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comment section below how you're feeling about the market on a macro level, if you're still investing in the Bitcoin mining space, and your outlook for the remainder of 2025. Now with that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay guys, so that's right. Monday afternoon, a dismal start to the week for both Bitcoin price and the Bitcoin mining stocks. We're going to be talking about that in depth in today's video. As the thumbnail rightly said, a bloodbath in the streets today, Anthony, with many of the top mining stocks in the sector down double-digit percentages really to start off the week here. I wanted to bring up the Bitcoin price. We've now broken through the $80,000 support level. We're in the $79,000 range. Our good friend Freedom by 40 has called for $75,000 to $78,000. So the pain may not be in or over yet, Anthony, but this is quite a dramatic turn from the $109,000 we saw just a few months ago.
Yeah, just a few months ago. That's a 30% drop since those all-time highs were achieved in December. We've explained many times. I mean, Bitcoin price is volatile, and the Bitcoin mining stocks are even more volatile. So, when Bitcoin price changes a few percent, the mining stocks normally change maybe double digits. And we've seen that again today. We've had a run now of quite a few days over the past sort of couple of weeks where the Bitcoin price has continued to drop. It was 92,000 literally 5 working days ago. So even 92,000 down to sort of 78,000 today. That's a staggering drop in a short space of time. And you think about the news stories surrounding Bitcoin. There's been no, really bad news. In fact, it's been fairly positive. I mean, we'll talk, about the summit held at the White House last week, which was attended by, many of the CEOs in the Bitcoin industry, from CEOs of exchanges to CEOs of public listed companies that hold Bitcoin, to mining companies. And also to some very senior fund managers, the likes of Cathie Wood was invited to that meeting. So everything was very positive. On the 6th of March, the president signed the strategic Bitcoin reserve bill to get that in motion there, and made a claim to say that they won't sell any of the confiscated Bitcoin, which currently sits at over 200,000. So effectively, as with their previous plan of trying to achieve 1 million Bitcoin over the next 5 years, that means they won't have to sort of like physically buy anything in the first year, because they'll be able to utilize that 200,000 plus Bitcoin for their first year holding. So they'll keep that as part of their reserve, and then they'll add to it over the next 5 years as they grow that to their plan to achieve 1 million Bitcoin. So all that was all positive, but I'm afraid the markets haven't seen it that way. And there's also a lot of macroeconomic issues that are affecting the markets, and the uncertainty with Ukraine, and things still aren't right in the Middle East, especially with Israel and Gaza. And inflation's causing a problem in many countries around the world. So all these macroeconomic issues are having a real problem on markets, and Bitcoin is no different from that. Bitcoin's also been affected. We just feel at the moment the size of the fall for Bitcoin and the Bitcoin mining stocks, appears to be, quite significant over this short period.
Yeah, it certainly does. Now, we've got some supporting articles here. We're going to talk about some of those macro trends. If we zoom into the Bitcoin miners themselves, Anthony, as you say, a lot more volatile than the Bitcoin price. We now have Cypher down 19% on the day. Wolf down 18%, and even MicroStrategy getting close to a 20% loss just on the day. So, as you say, Anthony, very volatile sector and seeing big downside pressure on the miners themselves.
Yeah. Many miners in more than double digits, and you're quite right. Cypher, actually achieving, close to 20% now, down on the day. And bear in mind, only last week, Tyler Page, the CEO, was basically telling the market that, they're going to have a host HPC client in one of their big sites by the end of 2025. So, you couldn't get more positive than that. These sites are, I think one of the sites is a 300 megawatt site, so that's a significant potential deal that yet to be formally announced. But he believes with the conversations having at the moment, that's likely to happen before the end of this year. So positive news stories are coming out, but the share prices, some of these miners, even the likes of Core Scientific, who have a deal, a big deal with CoreWeave, and we've talked about that many times. Their share price is down over 10% today, and also had a big fall in the last week or so with the news that Microsoft of pulling away maybe some of the deals with CoreWeave, yet to be substantiated by CoreWeave or by Core Scientific, but the share price has had a hit. IREN down, again, double digits today. Bitfarms double digits, and Riot also not being able to take cover on this particular angle. They're down close to double digits today as well. So a sea of red in the mining stocks there, all across the board. And the thumbnail slightly suggests it is a bit of a bloodbath today, and it's hard to take in. We cover these podcasts every day. We do over 200 a year, and these are the days that they're not the ones that we look forward to with the prices like this, because we've been very positive about Bitcoin miners. We've been here a long time through the various cycles, and we don't look at these days like this. But there are days where green days where you can equally have the opposite expectation, where these stocks will grow by double digits and a lot more in some cases.
Yeah, you're totally right. And for people who are newer to the channel, the reason we're so bullish and fixated on the Bitcoin miners themselves, we're obviously bought in and fundamental believers in Bitcoin. And it's actually funny how many people forget that Bitcoin mining is essential to the Bitcoin network itself. These are the companies that are validating the blockchain, running the audit every 10 minutes. Now, we've got a lot of comments before, Anthony, saying, well, yeah, mining is important, but we don't need publicly traded miners. We don't need US miners. People can mine all over the world. That's true until Trump just came out and said he wants US to be crypto capital of the world. He wants US mined Bitcoin. And the fact that in order to control that blockchain or ensure that it's being audited correctly, the US needs to have a sizable amount of the global hash rate. So if you are a Bitcoin maxi, if you believe in the Bitcoin network long term, you almost by default need to believe in the miners. And that's why we focus on them so heavily on the channel, Anthony. Now, you made a good point here saying the miners don't operate in a vacuum. There's a lot going on in the macroeconomic world as well. We've got tariffs, trade wars. We've got real wars going on in the world. We've got concerns about different incoming politicians and their stances. So if you look across Google headlines right now, you can see U.S. economy in transition as trade war escalates. Ontario here in Canada slapping reverse tariffs or counter tariffs. Small business concerns, Anthony, for the middle of this trade war, and lawmakers actually reacting to some of these policies. So all of that's going on in the background. And you rightly mentioned the crypto summit on Friday. That was specific to Bitcoin. That also became almost a bit of a letdown or nothing burger, as we've seen many of the other YouTubers call it. We were expecting a big announcement to kind of finalize or cap off that summit and really didn't get anything material out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the point that they'll, there's not going to be any buying over the next 12 months as a minimum, and the fact they'll just use the Bitcoin that's been, confiscated and use that as part of the first year, maybe left some investors, feeling a little bit unhappy that of the outcome. I myself was fairly positive. I mean, this has happened so quickly into the president's tenure. He's only been in the White House, 3 months for this period, and already, started to, really get to work on some of those things he promised before the election. So time will tell. I know that many of the people that attended there sort of, gave their view as they were leaving the White House, and I saw videos of a couple of the attendees. Brian Armstrong from Coinbase was very bullish on what had occurred, and he felt it was great for the industry and also for Bitcoin. So, let's see how this time frame works for Bitcoin. Bitcoin's literally just gone lower than the 200 moving day average. So that's the first time that's occurred in a while, which suggests that there might be further downturn to maybe 75,000. And I hear a number of the technical analysts out there are calling maybe Bitcoin will drop a little bit lower. Time will tell, though.
It certainly will. Now, similar to the negative headlines we saw from the financial press there, if you look at the market headlines as well, you can see the Dow, the S&P dumping across the board, Anthony, with the stock market reacting here quite a big way to these trade war tariff discussions. If you look at the fear and greed index as well, which is a great barometer of essentially how people are feeling about the market, whether you look at the Bitcoin crypto one specifically, we're sitting at a 20 right now, which is extreme fear. You can see that's been trending down over the last few weeks here as well, from 44, 33, 27, now hitting a low of 20. And from CNN, the fear and greed index for the market overall, Anthony, no better, in the 16 range right now, again, trending down dramatically over the last few weeks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, this is where it's, time to hold on here. At fear and greed index down at 20. We've seen it happen before. Many people left the market. We've seen a sort of, a lot of people leaving the space. You can tell that now by the amount of responses that, in the sort of Bitcoin mining space. It seems that investors have sort of have got a bit disappointed with the way that some of the mining stocks have gone. And if you think about the last 3 months, many people have seen their investment fall by, probably an average of about 50%. And that's quite hard to take in, for that short period of time. So go back to December, look at what the position is now, and I would expect most people in the mining sector to be about 50% down if they haven't sold any of the mining stocks from what they could have sold back in December, back when the Bitcoin price rallied to its high. So it's been quite disappointing. We've seen this happen before. As soon as the fear gets to these sorts of levels, people are looking for maybe leave the space for a while, or looking to move into maybe other stocks, more safer stocks out there with less volatility. But as with every cycle, we've seen these periods, and then we also then see the increases. And if we follow previous cycles, the speed at which the Bitcoin price can re-rally, it can be very, very dramatic.
It certainly can. And keep in mind, some of the biggest, most influential, wealthy people in the world right now have an invested interest in lowering the price of Bitcoin so that they can accumulate, whether on their corporate balance sheets or potentially for nation states themselves. Now, Anthony, you talk about investors rotating into other areas there. We have a great little visual talking about some of these Bitcoin miner share prices. You're right in saying probably the average in the neighborhood of 40, 50% over the last few months. However, if you look at some of the other retail favorites, even the likes of Tesla or Nvidia, which were some of the best performing companies in the entire market over the last few years, Tesla's given up 32% in the past month, while Nvidia has given up nearly 20%. These are, again, some of the best, most prestigious companies in the entire world.
Yeah, and go back further, and Tesla was, significantly higher than that there. I think it was like we're $450 at its high. So that's nearly getting down 50% from its highs last year. Nvidia also, was at one point nearly the most valuable stock on the stock market. And when you consider the business they're in of, in the HPC AI sector, everyone could understand why the price there, but that share price has dropped 20% in the last month as well. So no one's been able to avoid this downturn. It's not just the mining stocks or Bitcoin; it's the whole market's effectively down. People go out there try and find some green shoots. There's not many around, and we're in a space where, as I say, the volatility is even bigger. So, not many mining stocks. I think CleanSpark in the sort of like since year to date may only be down, I think about 12-13%. But if you go back a year ago, it's significantly down on where it was, and we know that back in March last year when its share price achieved $25 and it's currently at $8 now. Some of those investors who didn't quite sell at the highs are going to have to wait a long, long time for it to get back to those levels.
Yeah, they certainly are. So, with that being said, Anthony, the world doesn't stop turning just because the market is down. These companies continue to put out more press releases, more good news, as you say. And really, the question for investors is what to do now. If you're fundamentally bought into these companies, you should be welcoming these prices. It's a great opportunity to average down on your long-term thesis. If you don't understand these companies and you're panicking right now, you probably need to do more due diligence before you invest in a sector. So for those of us who are invested in Bitcoin for the long term, we've got the proper time preference here. This does present a great buying opportunity. And you just mentioned CleanSpark, Anthony. Share price depressed significantly in Q1 here alongside the other miners. However, they continue to put out positive news today, talking about joining the S&P Small Cap 600 Index. This is obviously one of the key reasons we've seen many of the miners re-domicile to the United States, essentially putting CleanSpark in a basket of stocks that investors or institutions need to buy, further gaining their exposure. So I actually put in some of the requirements to be in this S&P 600, but this is great news for CleanSpark. And again, a welcome sign that people will be continuing to buy this ticker despite the share price where it is now.
Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now.
Yeah, and many investors out there will be investing in the small cap 600 index as a whole. So effectively, every time they're investing as a whole in that index, shares are having to be bought in CleanSpark. So this will do very good for CleanSpark being part of that index. As they grow, they'll be able to move into the larger indexes. And maybe eventually getting in the S&P 100, the 100 biggest companies out there. See if we can get a miner in there. We know that Strategy managed to get into the 100 index before Christmas, and it'd be interesting to see if they can maintain that position in there, because obviously with Bitcoin price dropping, that's Strategy's big balance sheet position is based on the value of its Bitcoin, and we've seen the Bitcoin price drop recently, so could have impact there. But this is a good news story for CleanSpark. We know that when Marathon and Riot were on the Russell 2000 index and 3000 index, that it benefited them as well from institutional buys, because they have to. You can't pick and choose a basket. You have to go and buy the basket. So, as I say, positive all round.
Most definitely. And you can see the first requirement on that list to be a US company. Also interesting having positive earnings for the most recent quarter, Anthony. So as we saw the impact of some of that Bitcoin on balance sheet, definitely helping CleanSpark there. Now, another great press release today, Bitdeer Technologies Group coming out with very positive or encouraging results for their third generation seal miner unit, Anthony. Now sub 10 joules per terahash, directly as they talked about in their recent earnings presentation.
Yeah, this is a good update. Bear in mind, go back about a year ago when Bitdeer started talking about rolling out this technology, what their R&D team had been working on, a sizable R&D team at Bitdeer, well over 50 employees, which in terms of staffing is probably larger than some of the big miners having employees in total. And they brought out, obviously, Seal Miner, the A1 and the A2 have been out there and they've been tested and they're going, A1's in production, A2 is about to go into production. And the A3 was the next step on there where they were looking to achieve 10 joules a terahash. Now, bear in mind that the biggest manufacturer of ASIC machines at the moment is Bitmain. They probably control maybe 70-80% of the whole market. And they managed to get efficiency in their miners down to about 13.5. So this was a big ask. But to hear that Bitdeer is starting to achieve with some early testing of the wafers, getting even lower than 10 joules a terahash, this means that they're on track to get to where they need to be. And they spent in the region of about $55 million purchasing these wafers from TSMC in readiness to do this development and get this miner to where it needs to be. So there's a lot of money goes out there in terms of development of these miners. It's a big team, but also the cost to deliver this in terms of the products that you need to support that delivery. They're not cheap, they're expensive. But when you consider the potential, if Bitmain or Bitdeer are able to get a mining machine that delivers 10 joules a terahash, just think of the potential orders. Just think of all those miners who've probably got S19s, even the S19 XPs, which were operating around about the 20 joules a terahash. And it is now a miner which is twice as efficient as that. This is going to open the floodgates in terms of orders. And Bitdeer have actually calculated what that potential revenue could be based on the global hash rate. And they believe the potential revenue for the whole industry could be about $21 billion, and that's assuming an average of about $17 per terahash, which it isn't unlikely. I mean, miners are now paying sort of that $16-17 for the S21s. And if you think about what potential that 21 billion could be going to Bitdeer, they believe that they could maybe grasp 30% of the market if they get there ahead of the competition and are able to deliver mass production quickly. And that will be a key issue. It's all right getting the miners to that, but you've got to be able to produce the miner because your competitors are working around the clock to deliver equally an efficient system. And so, but they believe at 30%, that could be a $6.4 billion industry for Bitdeer themselves. And that really is, we've talked about how much money these mining companies could be making out of HPC. Well, potential for Bitdeer to join the big leagues just in terms of selling mining machines. So really good update, on track. And we'll follow that very closely as we speak with the company and get them on the podcast soon to give us more of an update face to face.
Yeah, now thinking back to our last interview with Bitdeer, Jeff LaBerge on the channel, he was saying this is very much a prove it story to the market right now. They've come out with these very ambitious targets for the Seal Miner roadmap. Many people, Anthony, even you and I, saw the 10 joules per terahash and said, okay, that's great if you can get there, but that would be like you and me entering into the iPhone market and trying to make a more competitive iPhone our first attempt. It's very, very difficult to do. Obviously, Obviously, they've got an extensive R&D team that was forged out of Bitmain. However, like you say, Bitmain and all these other competitors also have big R&D teams. So the fact that they're now able to get sub 10 joules per terahash, if they can manufacture these, like you say, get that to scale, I don't think many people are going to bet against them for the SealMiner A4, Anthony. And if they're able to get that type of efficiency, yeah, for sure they could start taking some market share here. Again, very positive story, very positive press release, but the share price with Bitdeer telling a different story. Now, we talked with Jeff as well about the analyst coverage. So Bitdeer, a very little known story just 12 months ago. I think he said one analyst. They've now got a dozen on here. So again, you guys, while retail is panicking about the share price, if you're looking at the news, you're looking at the actions of these companies and the people that are now taking a position or taking interest in terms of the investment community, very different story on each side of the coin here.
Absolutely. 12 analysts and some of the big ones there, H.C. Wainwright, Roth, B. Riley, Cantor Fitzgerald, all the big names are there, all the big analysts from those big names also supporting Bitdeer as well. So that's a big turnaround and a lot of positivity out there, not just from the fact, they're able to produce their own mining machine, which no other North American Bitcoin miner can actually do at the moment. I mean, we know that Marathon Digital made an investment into Auradine probably about nearly 3 years ago, but we've not really seen as many big updates from that. Maybe something comes out this year because Marathon could certainly use big orders to get their fleet to the efficiency levels that we've seen from CleanSpark and IREN. It's under 20 joules a terahash as an average at the moment, but it needs to come down to compete, because as you get that fleet more efficient, the cost of energy becomes lower, and it's all about the energy cost. That's the biggest cost these miners face with mining. But Bitdeer, if they can roll out the 10 joules or sub 10 joules as they've been testing at the moment by the end of this year into their sites, and they're looking to grow to, close to 40 exahash by the end of this year or early 2026. That's going to certainly put them way into tier one territory with the likes of IREN, CleanSpark, Riot, and Marathon.
Yeah, you're sure right about that, Anthony. And a great segue talking about growth and companies that are redomiciling to the United States. We got a production update for the month of February from Hive Digital Technologies. They're scheduling about a 4x in terms of hash rate growth this year, Anthony. And they've just redomiciled or moved their headquarters to San Antonio, Texas for that exact reason, or one of the reasons we just talked about in relation to the CleanSpark addition to the S&P Small Cap 600. So with that being said, Anthony, you've put together another one of your great comparative tables here for Hive. Why don't you walk us through their monthly numbers?
Yeah, so Hive at the moment, currently operating at their peak, they've managed to reach 6.2 exahash from their Bitcoin mining operation, slightly higher if you look at, they must still be mining a few alternate coins there. They were able to achieve 6.4 if you count the equivalency, but 89 Bitcoin mined, slightly lower than January, but we know February was a 28-day month. So the expectation, with difficulty increasing and 3 days less to mine, 13% lower than January. Average hash rate, well, again, you're into sort of like the colder periods and maybe a little bit more curtailment during February than normal months. So average operational hash rate was 5.6, which is 2% lower than it was in January. In terms of their efficiency, though, and this is another key metric, efficiency actually improved by 5%. So they're getting close to 20 joules a terahash. There's only about 4 or 5 miners that can actually be at 20 or lower at the moment. So Hive's certainly moving to that top 6 in terms of efficiency. They sold 126 Bitcoin, which was more than their production. They don't normally sell more than their production, but they have very good reason for in February. They're obviously invested in Paraguay. They just purchased a site from Bitfarms. That's going to, cost a total of about 85 million. So they've sold 126 Bitcoin to help them sort of, pay some of those bills as they move in there. But they've still got a substantial hodl. I mean, the hodl has dropped by 1%. It now sits at 2,620 coins. And based on the closing price of 84,000 at the end of February, that's a valuation of $221 million. $221 million. I mean, if you compare that to where, the market price today for Hive is, 276 million. And if you look at today's valuation of the hodl, $212 million, that represents 77% of its market capitalization. Now, the other good thing they came out with that they're improving their run rates in terms of HPC revenue. So at the moment, that's gone up to 13 million annualized revenue. They're hoping to achieve the 20 during Q2 of 2025. And we know they've got some ambitious targets by the end of the year. They are receiving, as we speak, more GPUs to raise that the potential revenues there, because they've got some big challenges to meet by the end of the year. But another good update from Hive.
Yeah, it certainly is, Anthony. I'm just scrolling through the watch list now. Miners continuing to decline as we move through this podcast. However, we did want to end on a positive note, you guys. Once again, the fundamentals really have not changed for this sector. AI, Bitcoin continue to be key focal points of adoption, and really governments, companies, and individuals around the world. So again, if you've got that long-term conviction, great opportunity to be averaging down on these positions. And as our final slide, we wanted to pull up a chart, a 5-year chart on Bitcoin here, Anthony. Again, so much happens on a day-to-day basis in this sector. We really encourage everyone to take a step back. Bitcoin, despite all of this volatility, concern, FUD really in the media, is still up over 1,400% in the last 5 years alone. And if you look at the chart, neither one of us are big on the technical analysis, Anthony, but you can see by my drawings here, this pattern looks very similar to what we saw in the last cycle, in my opinion, but on a much larger scale. We've talked about these 20-30% drawdowns in the price of Bitcoin. Those are a key component of these bull runs, really taking some pressure out of the system, giving people an opportunity to maybe scale back into the Bitcoin positions. So something we've seen before in history, something I think we'll see again, and in my opinion, looking very similar to some of the previous trading patterns we've seen in prior cycles.
So as we can see from previous cycles, that there's a pattern that follows. And bear in mind, when you consider the current cycle we're in now has had so much more positivity. We had the ETFs buying more Bitcoin than can be physically produced on a daily basis. We had strategy buying more Bitcoin than can physically be produced on a daily basis. And we've also seen the president announce the strategic Bitcoin reserve last week on the 6th of March. And so with all that positive news over the last 12 months, we've still seen, a decline in the Bitcoin price since December. So, it'd be interesting to see this play out. I firmly believe that, we will go back into the bull cycle during 2025 and part of maybe 2026 before the Bitcoin price will follow as it's done in previous years, like it did in 2022, drop, back a little bit then. But who can be, totally accurate? But the last 4 cycles have all effectively been very much following suit in terms of, from bear to bull cycle.
Yeah, they certainly have. And we've talked about the concerns of looking at history as a carbon copy. We said it often rhymes, but throughout the year, we have discussed the idea of having an elongated cycle this time around, Anthony, with the addition of that new capital and institutional investment. So with that being said, you've continued to work your way up the Miner Madness leaderboard, Anthony. I think somewhere around the 2nd place position right now. Again, great to see that we're able to avoid some of the biggest drawdown or losing stocks in the sector, but pretty dismal results across the board with about 3 weeks left in the competition.
Yeah, considering most people in the first competition we held were in profit by the end of the 3 months, it looks more and more likely that we'll see pretty much most of the competition. At the moment, everybody is down. Even the person above me is down nearly 24% since the 10th of January. And I'm just literally $1 further down than in first place there. So I believe during the day today, I did actually hit the top ranking for a short while, but these things are changing on a sort of like minute by minute basis as the stock market changes the prices. But yeah, we've still got 3 weeks to go. A lot can happen. We were just talking about a couple of, Unbuysam and Agrippa investments were in fifth or sixth place, literally just over a week ago, and they're in significant different position now. So, I might not finish bottom now. I think I'm more confident I won't finish bottom, but who knows what happens in the next 3 weeks. But good luck to everyone. And the actual coverage on the website, the number of people been going through and checking where they are has been going through the roof. So really appreciate all your support for the competition. And 3 weeks to go before we announce the winners.
You bet. And send out some more great prizing. We've got a storage room full of the stuff here, Anthony, to send out. So let us know in the comment section below, you guys. Are you taking advantage of these prices? Do you still have long-term conviction in Bitcoin and the miners? Or have you given up hope and moved on like so many of the other retail investors? We'll see you back here tomorrow for our Compass Mining interview.